Hello, everybody. Welcome. It's exciting to see you all online for April's From the Bench. We are really excited to have Rachel Phillips from Treadwell Press here. And I'm just going to do a little bit of housekeeping really quickly. My name is Jenny Hinchcliffe. I'm the Director of Exhibitions and Artist Programs here at San Francisco Center for the Book. Um, what I will say is that everyone is muted for today's session. And if you have questions for Rachel as we move through her presentation, please feel free to just enter them into the chat. And then at the end of Rachel's slideshow, we'll do a little Q&A. And I think you're going to have a lot of questions because her work, for those of you who might not know it, is super fantastic. Let's see. Today we're happy to welcome Rachel Phillips of Treadwell Press as our guest artist. Let's see. A lifelong Bay Area resident, Rachel currently resides in Pacifica, just south of San Francisco. Rachel, I love how you put that in your bio, like people don't know where Pacifica is.
Everyone always knows, but I never think anyone ever will.
I thought that was hilarious, actually. She began studying photography while completing her undergraduate degree at Skidmore College, attracted to the ways the medium could incorporate many other interests. In numerous group and solo exhibitions since, she's presented a series of projects exploring the photograph as an object, often resulting in unique works incorporating specialized printing techniques. In tandem to exhibitions, Rachel publishes artist books through her imprint Treadwell Press. Altered Archive, which is her latest title, is about a fictional archivist losing control of her archive with alarming and magical results. And I am so excited for Rachel to talk to us more about this project. Uh, Altered Archive was published in winter of 2025. Frequent themes in Rachel's work include considering the intersection of analog and digital technology, collecting and repurposing vernacular photographs and ephemera, blurring the line between truth and fiction, and understanding the impact of our technology on the natural world around us. So I'm going to admit, I'm going to remove spotlight, and I'm going to highlight Rachel. So go ahead, take it away if you could.
Thank you so much, Jenny, and everyone at SFCB. It is such a wonderful organization. It's so warm and everyone is so organized. I'm deeply appreciative of all that you do and your friendship and joy and support and organization. And it is great to be here today. All right, we are going to get right to it because a half-hour lunch break goes fast. And thank you, everyone, wherever you may be, for joining and spending this time with Jenny and me while you're hopefully nibbling on your lunch. So as Jenny sort of mentioned, I'm going to talk about two projects today. The first is the book that I published most recently through my own little imprint, Treadwell Press. And then I'm going to share a little bit of a sort of ultra secret sort of triple classified sneak peek into the book that I'm currently working on with SFCB through their small plates program, which is really wonderful program. And I'll talk a little bit about that at the end. Okay, so Altered Archive. Altered Archive is the third book that I have published sort of under the guise of an alter ego or sort of invented fictional character of mine named Madge Cameron. I make work under Madge's name quite a bit, and then that work finds its way into artist books. And so I wanted to, I like to share a little bit of Madge's story. Her background informs her work. So here we see Madge as an adorable bouncing baby. Total cutie patootie, young thing. There we see her with her mother, who sadly passed away shortly after this photograph was taken, leaving Madge with no memory of her mother, save a sort of photographic memory, save the sort of imagery that she had, a few snapshots of her mother, but no kind of direct memories. And this, of course, is sort of a deep intuitive trauma in Madge's life. And then after her mom dies, Madge and her brother are in the care of their father, who is this guy. And he's like sort of a charmer in a way. He's eccentric. He's not all bad, but he's just not super stable, and isn't super sort of equipped and up to the challenge of raising two kids now on his own during Great Depression. Times are tough. It's hard to make a living. He's got these kids at home. And so he goes out the door one day for the sort of proverbial pack of cigarettes, going to the corner store, and just never comes back. He just vanishes, we could sort of say, into the ether, into the photographic ether, gone without a trace, leaving only a sort of rudimentary camera behind, again, as a sort of photographic memory or object that sort of is evidence that this person was in Madge's life at one point, but now is sort of gone again. So, sad story, mom dead, dad gone. Madge and her brother are then placed in the care of their grandmother. And she's this sort of Edwardian dowager. She's severe. She comes from the children should be seen and not heard kind of generation. And she's not stoked in her elder years to now be having to raise these two children. And so her solution is to send them to the library from the time the library opens until 5 minutes after they're closed. And I picture them living in one of those foggy outer districts of the Sunset that were maybe just sort of being built at the time. And their local library is a few blocks away. And Madge basically, like sort of unloved by her family, she pretty much just raises herself in the library. Books and stories are her companions. This is her safe place. She grows up in the library and ends up just staying there. She earns her PhD in library science from the Librarians Anonymous Correspondence College, correspondence that she completed while, of course, being in the library. And then she goes to work and dedicates her adult life to being an archivist at a private archive, mainly focused on vernacular photography, photography of the everyday, the sort of archive of an eccentric private collector in San Francisco. And she gives her life to stewarding this collection. She's reclusive, she's a bit grumpy, she's keenly dedicated. She doesn't like having her picture taken, despite the fact that she's an archivist of a photographs institution. So here we see an undated snapshot of her a little later in life, but still she's sort of managed to shade her face so that we don't actually know much about her. So, Altered Archive. As the name implies, Altered Archive is a book about an archive that is undergoing a moment of being unsettled. The objects within the archive are changing in strange and magical and alarming and unexpected ways. And we kind of come across Madge in this moment, discovering what's going on, trying to understand what's going on, and then trying to sort of reckon with how to respond. And this is what's going on with the objects in her archive. These are prints that I make. That my work tends to sort of exist in a lot of media between sort of photography and printmaking and artist books. And so this is the sort of print side of this project. And in my imagination, these are prints in Madge's archive that they're sort of opening up deep storage, and they're opening their phase boxes, they're opening their archival materials, and they're taking out these snapshots, and they're discovering these really strange digital glitches or aberrations or corruptions, these alterations that are obviously digital in nature, and yet these are physical analog objects. And so they're profoundly perplexed and alarmed by this. How can the sort of signature ways that digital information degrades, how can that now be imprinting non-digitized physical photographs in the archive? And so I wanted the book to be sort of this immersive, disorienting, sort of maximalist tour through her archive at this moment of sort of a porous interweaving between our good old-fashioned sturdy analog world that we know and this brave new digital world that we're all engaging in right now. And we think of these two worlds as being separate. And so with this project and with this book, I wanted to kind of start to blur those boundaries and think about, what does it mean? We tend to think of history and technological evolution as being linear. First there was analog and now there's digital, but what if that process is more circular? What happens when the digital world talks back or reaches back into our analog space? So these are obviously a few spreads from the book. I love full bleed. It is my go-to design strategy. And then intermixed with these very maximalist spreads that are sort of an overwhelming amount of visual information are these spreads that are depicting empty photo frames. These are little paper sculptures that I make by using tissue paper to rub the sort of debossed texture of old cardboard photo frames. And then I kind of sew and recomposite the frames. I sort of sew the tissue paper together. So I photographed those little sculptures that I make. You can see the threads coming off from the stitching. And I've been thinking a lot and increasingly about sort of the space that absence can take up, or kind of the weight of loss, or how do we represent, it's kind of this sort of pretzel logic thing, like how do we represent the lack of something? What is the space of something that isn't there? Is that really just a void, or how do we define that void? And for Madge, she's had a lot of loss in her life and trauma in her early life, and all of us to varying degrees. Of course, like the process of being alive is a process of attrition, and the photographs that we take try to sort of push back against that in very imperfect ways. And so I think the sort of deepest concern in this book, and for Madge as a character, is to sort of reckon with the fact that the termination point for these pictures that are changing in her archive, the logical conclusion of those alterations might be pictures that have vanished altogether. And what does that mean for herself and for the archive and for the memories that pictures hold and that objects hold? I read all four of Elena Ferrante's Neapolitan novels during COVID. They really imprinted my thinking. And spoiler alert, block your ears if you're going to read all four and you haven't yet. But at the end of the fourth book, one of the two main characters disappears into a digital realm. And so I think that definitely influenced the story that I'm telling and that I'm kind of working through myself in this book. Okay, so that was Altered Archive. I'm just looking at the time. We're doing great. From Altered Archive to the inescapable zeitgeist. Rachel, what have you done? Okay. All right. So I grew up in Menlo Park. My parents are still there. I was visiting them yesterday. And for those of you who aren't in the Bay Area, Menlo Park is a small, leafy, quaint, boring suburb, sort of halfway between San Jose and San Francisco. And Menlo Park, along with all the other small, boring, quaint, leafy little suburbs that sort of line the peninsula, now play host to these mega tech companies. Menlo Park is honored and privileged to have the world headquarters of Meta, parent company of Facebook, owner of Instagram, the metaverse, and on and on and on. So I think, though I'm not a techie person at all, and I've never worked in tech, and I don't have the training, and I don't have an insider knowledge at all, I think just because I grew up here and stayed here, I have a sort of voyeuristic, like almost literally peeking over the hedge kind of interest in this Silicon Valley and this technology and these companies and the ways that they sort of undeniably move our world. So, whether you're in the Bay Area or not, you've probably heard that we're all experiencing a little bit of an AI fever dream at the moment. It might not be quite as loud in your town, but it is cacophonous in San Francisco. It is every robot taxi without a driver on every street at all times. It's every billboard, it's every advertisement. These are just a few snaps from my phone. The terminal at SFO, every single ad in the airport is something to do with cloud computing or AI right now, even as you're just trying to get your bag. And then on the left are a couple of billboards leading to the Bay Bridge. Advertising, companies you've never heard of, advertising inexplicable products that definitely aren't being marketed to you, which is really sort of, I feel like, the hallmark of the tech bubble, when these companies that have just sprung up overnight are advertising things just to themselves, I guess. So it's inescapable right now. It's in the air we're breathing, it's in the water we're drinking. And I started reading more about it and thinking more and hearing more. And being sort of a good artist, and a bit of a Luddite, you know, I'm pessimistic. I have some anxiety, but it's also, you don't have to look far. You don't need to look at the fringy edges of the internet to start kind of hearing a lot about the costs of all this technology. And so I'm reading and thinking about the cloud computing and the data centers, and the tremendous amount of sort of infrastructure that is required to have AI software work. There's huge environmental costs, but there's also a massive impact of this technology on, there's a social cost, there's a cost to civil society, there's a huge psychological cost. People are becoming addicted or they're in love with chatbots and they think they're real and they do really crazy and it's sometimes like tragically harmful actions that they undertake because a chatbot tells them to or doesn't know to tell them not to. We're seeing governmental impacts, sort of weakening government institutions combined with AI, erosion of truth and confidence. Not good, not good, not good. So we're in the middle of sort of a fundraising bonanza here. On the tech side, you know, there's also economic costs. These technologies are rendering lots of people's work irrelevant quickly. So I'm just kind of reading all of this and trying to understand it, as I think many of us are in different ways and at different levels. And so being a visual artist, eventually I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. Okay, I don't actually understand any of these words, like machine learning, what? Artificial intelligence, what? Neural networks, what? What even are these words? And so Google image search, neural network diagram. Like, let's get to the bottom of this. So you search for neural network diagram, and this is what you got. These sort of variations on the theme, these sort of circular nodes with these intersecting, overlapping, sort of linking up lines, these diagonal lines. And, you know, lots of different variations, but a very sort of recognizable basic form. And, you know, I looked at this and I was like, wow, this is teaching me nothing, absolutely nothing. I felt like we're talking about autonomous weapon systems, and this is the diagram that you're giving me for the tech behind the thing. It really was a moment of like, let's peek at Oz behind that curtain. Now I know that these are simplified. This is sort of clip art. These are not technical diagrams, and obviously there's much more at work than just this. However, sort of on my journey toward understanding, I still just felt like, okay, there's all this verbiage and now there's all these visuals, but there's no sort of ever spark of insight that has yet to come to me. Nevertheless, I was really taken on a sort of graphic and visual level by the form itself. And so this is a dummy of the book that I'm working on for small plates. For those of you who don't know, it's a wonderful years-long program that SFCB has been running, a publishing program that you can apply to. You apply in the fall. And the spec is that your book needs to be 4 inches square. But beyond that, the structure of the book and the content of the book are up to you. And so I was really inspired by this diagram of these sort of fractal, kaleidoscopic, folding, overlapping, sort of collapsing and expanding series of lines. And that kind of really informed us to try to hold up here. Like the structure of the book itself, I felt like really mirrors that. It's this really cool origami structure, really sculptural, gets big from 4 inches square. And it reminds me a lot just in the structure of the book itself. You can kind of see of that motif. And I feel like this book makes just as much sense as that diagram. So I should add that to my LinkedIn if I had a LinkedIn, like AI explainer or something. Okay.
Oh, it
The
has
book
dropped
is,
out a little.
huh? Am I good now? Can you hear me
Or
now?
per
Can you hear me now, Jenny?
I can, yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay, good. Let me see a little closer. The book is called Lovelace. It is not about the porn star, which could have been fun. It is about this woman. I'm just checking my time here. I'm going to go a little faster. Her name was Augusta Ada King. She was the Countess of Lovelace. She was born in 1815, unfortunately died quite young at the age of 36. This is a portrait of her from 1836 by a painter named Margaret Carpenter. She's in the, this painting is in the National Portrait Gallery in London. And Ada was a mathematician. Her biography is interesting. She was the daughter of famous bad boy poet Lord Byron. Her mom, Anne Isabella Milbank, was everything Byron wasn't. Their marriage was a disaster. They separated when Ada was an infant. She never saw her father again. And her mom was very rational, very pious, very disciplined. And she lived in fear that the sort of Byron blood side of Ada would emerge and that she might be sort of creative or fanciful or imaginative. And so Ada received a very rigorous education across disciplines, but including math. Being a member of the aristocracy, moving in elite circles at a sort of London soiree, she's introduced to a mad scientist inventor named Charles Babbage. He's really considered the father of our computer age in a lot of ways, or maybe always. And he had conceptualized and partially built, but was never able to finish, two machines for completing mathematical computations, the difference engine, and then the more complex and more variable analytical engine. And Ada falls in love with Babbage and is absolutely entranced with the possibility of these machines. This is just a little bit of Babbage's notes. I love it on so many levels, and it's such a wonderful reminder that our computer era was born out of this incredibly tactile, analog, steam-powered, human-powered era. Ada becomes such an expert in his work and such a sort of fan and Babbage booster that she's invited by a British publisher to translate a text that had been written about his machines. It had been written in French, and she's invited to translate it into English so that it can be published in the UK. And she undertakes this writing commission with tremendous pride and gusto. And the notes that she ends up, the sort of introductory notes that she ends up writing for this book, end up being far longer than the article itself that she translated. As a fun, sort of nerdy side note, there are 6 known first editions of this book floating around in the world. She just said, with notes by the translator, and included her initials. She didn't want to be stigmatized as a woman. And so she felt like it would be better if she stayed anonymous. So in her introduction, she says, we may say most aptly that the analytical engine weaves algebraical patterns, just as the jacquard loom weaves flowers and leaves. Ada's really prophetic about Babbage's invention. She employed, or I guess probably coined, the term poetical science to describe her approach, maybe despite of her mother. This is the era of transcendentalism. We have Frankenstein, we have massive automation, industrial revolution, and then reaction to that as we're experiencing now. And she's very comfortable kind of holding both of those things and synthesizing them and articulating them. Babbage is kind of, he's an engineer. He's like, I'm making a machine that's going to do mathematical calculations, which is visionary and amazing. But she sees far sort of greater potential and what that machine might one day do. So kind of reaching back, and I'm looking at the clock, I'm going so fast, reaching back um, to sort of the memories of those sort of useless neural network diagrams. And I'm learning about this proto history of computers from the 19th century and the connection between punch cards and Jacquard weaving and Ada and Babbage. And I go to Letterform Archive and I ask sort of, hey, do you have anything on that set of topics? And they pull this amazing book for me. It's entirely hand-drawn French manuscript on Jacquard weaving from 1882. And I just couldn't believe it. This, you turn the first page, and this is a portrait of Jacquard, and it looks like a bitmap. It looks like an early computer illustration. And just you turn the next page, and it's these punch card diagrams that again feel so modern, or certainly mid-century modern in terms of, we think of sort of like 1950s, 60s Atom age IBM computers the size of a room. And they're so charming. It just tells you if you want that little checkerboard fabric, which I definitely do, that's the punch card pattern you need. And then I came to these diagrams for how to dress the loom before you start to weaving, and I was just blown away. It's these circular nodes with these overlapping sets of diagonal lines that was just so reminiscent of this form to me. I was just really sort of flabbergasted. And then we've got this sort of hideous thing with the cats and the dogs. And, you know, sure enough, in this book, there is this amazing page with a pattern for how to weave a cat. And I have to say, just on a graphic level, this is so much better than this. Like we are, yes, we are devolving. So just to go through the last few here, this is just eye candy. The book has actual samples of fabric in it. And then on the opposite page, it will show you the pattern for making the fabric. This is all hand drawn, all of those beautiful black grid lines. It's such a beautiful object. 'Okay, I'm going to skip that one for the sake of time. So my book, in terms of the content of this little book that I'm doing with SFCB, is taking imagery from this book at Letterform Archive about 19th century jacquard weaving and sort of reinterpreting and re-algorithmizing that imagery into book form, sort of keeping in mind that these sort of motifs and ideas that we are grappling with now and that we are feeling like are so new in 2026 actually have a century plus of sort of precursor behind them, which is interesting to me. So the book is still in design phase, but this is kind of like what's going on in my studio. And that's it. 12:59.
Amazing. Amazing. Oh my gosh. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Um, I always really appreciate how much research you put into each project.
So
And
fun. It's the
I
best
know
part.
I was gonna ask if you could just talk a little bit about one because you've done many artist books. And so can you talk a little bit about your one of your favorite research projects?
Yeah, this has been a wonderful research project, and I'm working on another project that is a connection between a 12,000-year-old plant, a 12,000-year-old creosote bush in the Mojave Desert, and it has connections to 19th century history of photography and camels that were imported during the Civil War, and then ancient camels that became extinct 10,000 years ago. And that project has been really fun research because it's been going to the Smithsonian. It's been going to the Museum of Natural History in LA to see a camel skeleton. It's going to the desert to see this plant, but then it's going to the Bancroft to look at these photographs. So that's been really fun because it's very different parts and pieces of evidence that a lot of them are preserved, but it's sort of siloed. They're across the country in very different institutions, and everyone kind of knows the piece of the story that they have. But it's really fun to kind of go around and get to build those connections and that bigger picture, and then also be like, oh, I'm holding like a, I don't know, a camel skull today.
Right, combined with a daguerreotype of,
Yes,
like the high
yes,
desert or
exactly.
something.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Wow. Do we have anyone? We can take one more question. Does anyone have a quick question for Rachel? Feel free to go ahead and unmute yourself if you want and just ask out loud.
Oh,
Looks like
I'll
Paula.
ask a
Yeah.
question.
Sure. Thanks, Paula.
Hi. I just was seeing like how sculptural your book was and kind of thinking about how the medium can transform, looking at something page by page or bringing out into this installation. For this book that you're making now, how do you envision that? Are you hoping that viewers, because as soon as it does go into institutions, it's, then it's protected and safe and put in an archival box. I wonder like how do you envision viewers being able to interact with that, and how maybe do you make that happen when you share your work or show your work in spaces?
It's a
Yeah,
great
that's a great
question. Yeah.
question. I'm usually kind of like a single signature, like saddle stitch part of type of a gal. Like I love the idea of all these complex book structures, and then I don't usually end up using them. So it's really exciting and different for me to be working on this book. Um, and I kind of like it. And I'm working with Chad. We're trying to find the paper that's sort of durable enough, but floppy enough. I sort of envision it being this sort of flopped out sculptural object. The imagery is pretty abstracted. It's mostly sort of geometric forms. It's not going to have a linear narrative. It will have a little bit of text and a couple panels on the back. But I am kind of seeing it more as this sort of datascape that you will look at all at once. And as you sort of bump it or nudge it or pull it out a little or push it back, it collapses back on itself. And the sort of contrast between all those pieces change. So that's
Yeah,
in my thinking.
it sounds like it'll make visual sense in a lot of different configurations.
Yeah, I hope so. I'm sort of a maximalist. That probably came through, maximalist in all ways. And I'm definitely, the design process for this book has been about paring back. Because the form itself is already pretty complex. A lot goes on even just as a blank book. And so it sort of feels like gilding the lily pretty quickly. And so I'm kind of almost like, wait, am I done? Is that my design? But I don't feel like it needs more. Too much starts to detract. So
Yeah.
that's my hope. Yeah.
Great,
Nice.
thank you.
Thank you, Paula.
Wow. Well, I think on that note, that excellent question, I think we'll go ahead, we'll wrap up. We're just a couple minutes over. Again, thank you. I'm gonna go ahead and here, gonna replace Spotlight. Okay. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you so
Jenny.
much. I am a huge fan of your work, and I have been for a really long time. And so it's been great to host you, and I am so looking forward to seeing your Small Plates book. It's going to be
Me too.
fantastic. I know you're like, oh yeah, me too. And I'll let the folks here know, all 27 of you. We're actually thinking, we're working on, Rachel and I have discussed about trying to have that beautiful jacquard pattern book here for the night of the Small Plates party so that she can talk about it in
Marsh
her
likes that
presentation.
idea.
Marge loves that idea. So anyway, so that might be a cool thing that happens if you come to the Small Plates party. Before we sign off, I'm going to tell you a little bit about next month's artist. For May, we're going to have Quinn Keck. Quinn is a multidisciplinary artist who investigates concepts in sociology, physics, and technology. There's a theme here for this year's Small Plates. Quinn is also one of our Small Plates artists. They are also one of us, right, exactly. There's a link to register in the feedback email that you will receive once this event wraps up. So feel free to join us next month. And thank you, everybody, for attending this month. And a special thanks to Rachel. Thank you so, 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 so much.
Thank you,
All
Jen.
right. We'll see everyone real soon and have a great month. We'll see you in May. All right.